Hey, happy New Year on the Wise Guys. We welcome you to the first week of 2024. This is the #1 BYU Sports Livestream talk show in the entire world. Dave McCann and Blaine Fowler. So as we hit the air on January 1st, we're taped. The live stream's still hot, so you can get on there and talk with each other. But with it being the holidays, we wanted to get together, and we thought what great hour we could do is look back on the year, the big things and the not so big things in BYU sports. And also, as the start of the new week, the Big 12 begins at the end of the week, so there's a lot to talk about what's going on right now.
Yeah, so it's a year-end review, the year in sports, but it's also a look forward because the winter season for the Big 12, BYU had a very successful fall season in the Big 12 across multiple sports, and now a chance to look into maybe some of the surprises that we're looking at as they roll into the Big 12 winter season. Basketball team being one of them, right? Surprise! We'll talk about all of that.
It's going to be an awesome show. We remind you, as always, to follow us on YouTube. We got a link in the chat. Hit the subscribe there on the website or on the YouTube site. It's all free. And then follow us on Facebook and Twitch and ysguys.com. You'll get our weekly email.
Yeah, you got to make sure you subscribe to us on ysguys.com, right? Because then you get the weekly email with highlights from the show, past interviews. And there's such good stuff. I was just talking to somebody the other day at the basketball game that we were doing, and was telling him about it. And he looked it up. He looked up Wise Guys. He subscribed right there. And then the next week, the next game we did, he came back and said, "Wow, there's a lot of amazing interviews there." I was like, "Yeah, there are." He goes, "Man, you guys had some dudes there." He goes, "That Steve Young Vice Gahema interview, my favorite." And I said, "Well, that's one of our favorites too. It was a great one." And he says, "I haven't seen the Danny Ainge one yet. I got to see the Danny Ainge one." I said, "Well,
see that one."
I said, make sure you see the Marie Osmond one and the Sherry Dew one while you're at it. And how about the Wally Joyner one?" And we just had Jimmer, and he's like, "Yeah, I got a lot to catch up on." So
Kyle Van Noy, who's rocking it with the Ravens, and of course Sherry Dew. All of that waiting for you at wiseguys.com. And by the way, our show last week was so much fun because we just put clips of the interviews we've had on the show, like a 2-minute here, a 3-minute here. If you're bored or just need something cool to listen to, it's waiting for you at wiseguys.com. And you get, I think we had 20, 25 different clips on there.
It's a highlight film. It's a highlight show.
One hit after the other.
Yeah, and lots of good fun stuff.
And then the full interviews are waiting for you at wiseguys.com. So tonight, our Wise Guys year in review, we're going to look at our top 10 plays on offense, defense, and special teams, and our bottom 5. So start thinking about that. What was the biggest play of the year? What was the worst play of the year? And I think I already know what you're thinking about. It came on first and goal from the 2-yard line.
I can think of a couple of the worst plays of the year, right?
Let's jump into some headlines as we launch into the new year with a lot going on. And BYU's football team, they just announced their recruiting class in December. They'll have another one in February.
Yeah, because this is the early signing day, so this is just part of what they're going to have for a recruiting class.
And then the shopping in the portal hasn't got anything to do with this.
No, and the portal's open still.
Yeah, I think it closes tomorrow, and then it's back open in April.
That's right, and then there's another opportunity there. This initial class, this early signing class, was very defense heavy. Yeah. And they addressed a lot of the pressing needs. I mean, what have we been talking about over and over and over again? And you've asked me, and we've asked guests, and everybody said, man, they really need to load up on the defensive line. And I don't think any position was addressed more aggressively than defensive line. As multiple big physical guys in this initial signing class, the early signing period, really going to help out on the D-line. They got some defensive backs, a couple of linebackers.
That's good because I watched Kansas and Oklahoma State in their bowl games.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, we got to stop those guys.
Yeah, they have some offense.
Here they come.
Both all these teams in this league have great offense, and you got to play great defense. And I was very pleased. Now, the offense, the word on the street was, hey, yes, this was heavy on defense. The regular signing day is going to be a little heavier on the offensive side. There's some transfer portal folks that didn't want to get in the portal before their bowl games. So bowl games are still playing out as we speak.
Yep.
And so there's more news on the offensive side to come. And so hopefully when it's all said and done, this ends up being the best recruiting class in history. It's looking like it's shaping up to be that. And I do know this, in this early signing period, folks that were destined to sign early, and head-to-head with the University of Utah, who's in the same league with BYU
and
now.
let's be honest, that's what we use as a judge.
Yeah, it's a good barometer because Utah's been a Power 5 school for more than a decade in the Pac-12. Yeah. They've been recruiting with that for the last decade and had some good recruiting classes. So now that they're in the same league, how's BYU going to go head-to-head? And the ones that they were going head-to-head, at least for this early signing, BYU got more than they didn't get head-to-head with Utah. I'm hearing like 19 they kind of went head-to-head on, anywhere from 11 to 12 that BYU got that they were trying to go after. So you're gonna get some of those, you're not, but BYU fared very well against their conference rival. That sounds weird.
I watched the Northwestern game. Northwestern beat Utah, held them to 7 points in the Vegas Bowl, and Utah looked like a first-year P5 team in that game.
Yeah,
against not a very good Northwestern team. I'm like, you know what? They're going to take their licks coming into the Big 12. Anyone thinks that Utah or Arizona State or Colorado are just going to march into the Big 12 and head right to the top? We'll see.
Yeah, and Utah had a really good run there the last couple of years when they had Cam Rising at quarterback, who was an elite level quarterback and healthy there for a period of time, that was running all over the place and causing defenses problems. And they had multiple NFL guys on the defensive side. This was a reset year for them. They weren't as dominating defensively. They didn't defend the pass as well. And guess what? The Big 12 is a crazy pass league, right? And on offense, it just goes to show, and BYU's had these struggles in the past as well. When you're not great at quarterback, you're not great. Period. Yeah. Right? And they weren't great at quarterback. Now, news is Cam Rising's coming back. But what made Cam Rising great?
His ability to run.
He is a playmaker with his feet. And nobody's ever said, man, this is the greatest pocket passer in the history of the game. No, he was okay. He was phenomenal at making plays. So when he comes back from major knee reconstruction, is he the same guy? You don't know. If he is, he'll be really good. If he's not, then Utah's going to struggle on offense again. And if BYU can't find an answer at quarterback, they're going to struggle on offense again. It's the most important position in team sports, and you've got to be great at that position or you're not great.
One thing we're going to find out later this month, really in 2 weeks, when we're told the Big 12 schedule will be released, is when the Cougars and Utes will play, we think, Thanksgiving weekend.
We hope Thanksgiving weekend.
Will it be a Saturday? Will it be a Friday? Will it be on Thanksgiving? I don't know. We're going to find out in a couple of weeks. And we can also say on this show, which is the first show we can say it, later this year, on August 31st, BYU and Southern Illinois will kick off the new season at LaVell Edwards Stadium. And I don't know why, but it always feels closer when you can say, we don't have to say next year anymore. It's like, no, the countdown's on. We're less than play in August. That's 8 months.
It's 2024, and the 2024 opener is Southern Illinois on August 31st, right at LaVell Edwards Stadium.
So that's going on with football. I'll have more on that in a moment as we break down the plays of the year. Men's basketball, this is the week. The Big 12 opener, Saturday night against Cincinnati at the Marriott Center. 8 o'clock Mountain Time is the tip. Pre- and post-game on BYU TV. And it's the Cougars and Bearcats. It'll be historic. The Marriott Center will be full. The place will be rocking. There's never been a Big 12 game in Provo. And we're getting one on Saturday.
Here we go. That's like January and February are all Big 12, and it's exciting. And nobody had any idea, including us, that this basketball team was going to go into Big 12 with the kind of success that they've just had in October, November, and December.
No.
Nobody. Not a single person can say that they thought. If they say that they thought the BYU was going to play the way they did through these 3 months, they are lying to you.
And we include the head coach in that. Yeah. Everyone has high hopes. Well, if this works out and this, they haven't been healthy but one time, and that will be this weekend.
Right.
This weekend is when they're all expected to be on the floor for the first time. So it's also the first week where they've been able to practice as a whole unit. Remember, when we went to practice in the summer as they were getting ready for Europe, Khalifa wasn't practicing. Baker wasn't practicing. And they still weren't practicing. Then Foose gets knocked out in the Thanksgiving Day game against USC.
Yeah. And Jackson Robinson had a sprained ankle that kept him out a little bit. But they should be going into the Big 12 season. They should be healthy for the first time all season, right?
Yeah.
And I I can't imagine how good they might be with everybody. It may be a problem, though. Mark may not be able to figure out how many minutes to play everybody because having guys hurt has been a little convenient, and they've been so deep that they've been good even when they've had injuries. And we've gotten glimpses of different players, and man, they've got so many guys that can shoot the ball, Dave. That's what's been exciting. And every time you and I get to talk to an opposing coach, they all say the same thing. Man, this team can really shoot it. But the most remarkable thing is teams that have this many guys that can shoot it don't usually play defense and rebound the way this team does. How is Mark getting this team to focus on the rebounding side of things and to play defense so connected like they do? Because usually great offensive teams don't have that much interest. So kudos to Mark and his staff for getting this team to play on both ends of the floor through these first 3 months of the season and come out of the preseason and going into the Big 12 season with way different expectations than any of us had. And Dave, you and I have been talking earlier today and last week about the metrics, about the analytics. Now, ESPN has this matchup predictor where they throw all kinds of analytics into the computer, and it comes out with a percentage chance to win each game that's in the future. So I took a look at every game in the Big 12 in January and February because I thought, hey, and so BYU plays 7 Big 12 games in January, and they play 8 Big 12 games in February. The matchup predictor in ESPN has BYU going 5-2 in January. What?
Yeah.
And they have them going 6-2 in February. So they have them beating Cincinnati, 81.2%, losing at Baylor, who, by the way, is nationally ranked and really good. They say they have a 34% chance to win that one. So there's the one loss, the first loss. They have them at Central Florida, 60% win chance. Iowa State at home, 63.7%. This is a 10-2 Iowa State team, 63.7% win chance. At Texas Tech, who's 9-2 going into the season, 58% chance to win on the road. Houston at home. Of course, they're number 3 in the country.
Yeah, right? And they might be number 1.
They could be
when they come in.
Yep. So 40% chance. Even if they give BYU a 40% chance to beat a Houston team is amazing. And then this is the one that baffles me. They have BYU an 82% chance to beat Texas at home to close out the month of January. So it's 5. So the only losses in January predicted by ESPN's matchup predictor is at Baylor and Houston at home. What? Am I going out of my mind?
And that's not the blue goggles. That's not us being optimistic.
This is analytics, right?
Those are the numbers.
So now let's go to February, Dave. At West Virginia, 76% chance to win on the road. West Virginia's having a little bit of a down year for them. At Oklahoma is one of the losses, but Oklahoma went
top
through
20?
November, December, January at 10-1, or October, November, December.
Yeah.
45% chance. K-State at home, who's really good, 86% win percentage chance. Central Florida at home, 90% win chance. At Oklahoma State, who also is a little struggling, 72.8%. Here's the one that really blows me away. Baylor at home, 70.6% chance to beat Baylor at home.
Yeah, I'll tell
and
you.
then at Kansas State, 58.6%. And the second loss in February, based on the matchup predictor for ESPN, is at Kansas, 38.2%. So they have them beating West Virginia, Kansas State, Central Florida, Oklahoma State, Baylor, and Kansas State in February, and only losing at Oklahoma and at Kansas in February. That means that they have them going 11-4 in the first 2 months in the league in January and February.
Even if they're just half right, BYU's going to have a great seed in the NCAA
tournament. If BYU
wins
wins 7 games during that time, I will be pumped.
Yeah.
Just let's mark that down. But none of us predicted this. Nobody predicted it. But this is not us going, hey, now that we think they're so great.
It's not the wise guys pick.
This is the ESPN matchup predictor, who, by the way, in football got BYU pretty much right on the money.
Yeah, they did. Much to our chagrin.
Yeah.
So now to bring it back home, with the home opener Saturday against Cincinnati, then Tuesday, January 9th at Baylor. That's their first road game in the Big 12. It's the second road game of the season. The first one didn't go so great at Utah, but they haven't had a road game. They played in Vegas, but those are neutral games. They played in Salt Lake. That's a neutral game. Baylor will be, and tip your cap to the scheduler, Baylor will be the second road game of their entire schedule on January 9th. That's nice.
Yeah.
Keep doing that, and you should always come out of December with
you should be in pretty good shape within the first 3 months.
And then UCF on January 13th, so they got that road swing. Now, the Knights are picked to finish 14th. Who's picked to finish 13th? BYU.
Not anymore, though.
Not anymore.
Everybody wants a
That
re-vote.
was when the vote was. There's no re-votes, but that's when the vote was taken. And then Iowa State at the Marriott Center on January 16th. So exciting times. We've never been here before. And so we're curious to see what happens. We'd never been in the Big 12 for football. And at 5-2, everyone's going, you know what? This isn't that tough. And then reality came.
Right.
And it turned into 5-7. And you know what I hate? I hate watching all these bowl games. And like 90 teams feel like they're in bowl games, and we're not in one of them.
Well, and this is the thing that that Gavin and I were talking about last night as we were watching the bowl game. We're going, man, some of these teams are not as good as BYU, but they play in leagues.
Yeah.
Like BYU with the exact same team they had this year, playing in the Mountain West Conference, competes for a Mountain West Conference championship, probably wins 9 or 10 games, and they're in a bowl game.
Yeah.
But this is a different deal. You're in a Power 5 conference, have a couple of injuries, don't play well, turn the ball over when you shouldn't, you lose games.
But, you know, if you're in the Mountain West and you win it, you still go to a bowl that doesn't hold its water to a middle-of-the-road Big 12 bowl. I was thinking that, too, going, well, look, if we were 7-5, we'd be playing prime time against this team from
another
the
P5
SEC.
team, yeah.
And so that's what we want.
I would rather be 7-5 and in the Big 12 and playing in better bowls and having the games that mean something in that league than be 10-2 in the Mountain West all day long.
Because we've been 10-2 before.
Yeah,
many times.
Big deal.
Women's basketball, the Big 12 home opener. Oklahoma is at BYU this Wednesday, January 3rd at 7 o'clock on ESPN+.
And this team, like, nobody really knows what to expect from this team because, again, when we've talked to opposing coaches, and I had a chance to do a women's game here just a couple weeks ago, the scouting report on BYU women is crazy talent, but very young.
Yeah. Especially
on the guard line. Crazy talent, a team that can get up and down the floor and shoot it, a rebounder that's second to none in the country in Lauren Gustin. So really talented, but really young. How does really talented but really young play out in the Big 12 with the rigors of that level of competition every week? It's just so hard to know. And do they grow up as the season goes on and start winning more games as they get more experienced? Or does that youth just kind of hurt them all season long and they lose games that they shouldn't lose, not because of talent, but because they're just not experienced enough?
I have a feeling, we'll see, I feel like it's going to be the latter with this group because outside of Lauren Gustin, they are young. Yes. And having lost a couple of players that are ball handlers to injury or to moving on and leaving the team high and dry, that left them with freshmen handling the ball. And this is, those freshmen are going to have to go play at Texas. It's going to be different.
And here's the fun thing to look forward to with that, though. You know, with a lot of sports, we expect the football to have some growing years, right, to grow into it. Basketball, we expected. We'll see if that's the case. Maybe not. Maybe the transfers they got last year are going to pay off this year in their second year with more experience. But in women's basketball, they've got some really talented freshmen that are playing a bunch right now. So the future looks bright. I think they're going to be really competitive next year. And then the year after that,
then they'll be.
Then they should be contending. Right.
Men's volleyball, 19-7, 8-4 last year. They got the season opener this Friday night, 6 o'clock on January 6th at 7 p.m. Mountain Time on BYU TV. Ball State is at BYU. BYU TV gets all the volleyball games at home.
Not in the Big 12, right?
They're not in the Big 12, so you'll see Cougar volleyball on BYU TV all the time, and we're thankful for that. Ball State, it all starts Friday night, January 6th at the Smithfield House.
And the volleyball league that the men play in is the best league in all of.
Yeah.
Hey, it might be the best league in all of college athletics because you typically have like 6 teams in the top 12.
Do you think it rivals the Big 12 basketball league?
Yeah, I think the MPSF in volleyball is the equivalent of the Big 12 in basketball. Yeah. Yes.
We only hang with the best.
Yes.
That's how we do this. Happy New Year. Keep chatting with each other on our live chat. That's up and live. We've recorded this earlier so we can celebrate New Year's Eve with the family and also have our podcast out all week. And time now for the Wise Guys 2023 year in review. We've never done one of these before, but here we are on the first day of 2024, the first week of January. Let's look at football. 5-7 in their first year as a P5 member of the Big 12. Among the headlines, stunned Arkansas on the road, 38-31. That will never not be a great win.
Yeah, and it was in front of a sold-out SEC crowd with a team in Arkansas that had a ton of SEC speed and talent, and they came out and played toe-to-toe. And that's when we thought, whoa, maybe this team's a little more ready than we thought for the Big 12. Maybe they don't just go out and win 5 or 6 games. Maybe they win 7 or 8 after that Arkansas victory, 38-31 on the road. And then they won their Big 12 home opener against Cincinnati, 35-27. And we're going, hey, here we are. Here we go. That was
a sweet night. The weather was perfect. It was a late at night, so with the flyover, we didn't get the flyover, which we were bummed about. But 1-0 in the Big 12. It was the first time big time football had come. Mm-hmm. We've had big time guests, but this was the first time that it was big time football because of the league that BYU is in. They also beat Texas Tech at home, 27-14. Lost the last 5 games of the season. So at 5-2, Keaton Slovis gets hurt. They moved to Retzlaff for the last 4 games, lose all 5. Probably could have won 2 of them.
And it's interesting thing is maybe the 2 of the best 3 teams they played all season long, they played at the end of the season in Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. And they maybe played their best football with a few exceptions, mistakes that cost them in those 2 games. It seemed like they finally put things together but couldn't get over the hump and win. But I have to say they competed really well in the Oklahoma and Oklahoma State games. And outside of Texas, in my opinion, those were the 2 best teams in terms of talent and all that. And think about it, Oklahoma State played in the Big 12 championship. Oklahoma thinks they should have played in the Big 12 championship. So they were clearly, not just us saying that, but based on how the teams finished in the league, 2 of the best teams in the league, and BYU played some of their best football in those last 2 games.
Day after the regular season ended, Kalani Sitake dismissed the offensive line coach Darryl Funk and the tight ends coach Steve Clark. Hired TJ Woods as the offensive line coach and running game coordinator. We thought it was important that position is both.
Yes.
Which has not been the case, and they're still looking for a tight ends coach.
Yeah, and I think I think there's some conversations with some coaches that are involved in bowl games that don't want to announce. We had heard about TJ Woods, and you and I talked about it on this show for weeks without an official announcement because his team needed to go play in their bowl game, and he didn't want to do a disservice to them, and he wanted to be focused on that. And then the TJ Woods announcement came. So not only transfer players, but maybe a tight ends coach is announced here in the coming weeks.
Now let's look at the top 10 plays of 2023. So we have the top 10 offensive plays, top 10 defensive plays. We'll do the top 5 special teams plays and the bottom 5, which 5 plus 5 equals 10. So 3 sets of 10. And we're going to go through them briefly, but I think they'll kind of take you back to that moment, and you can agree or disagree with us on the stream or in your car or wherever you're listening to. There were a lot of plays that were pretty cool, some first times, and then we get to the 5 disappointing plays. You're going to feel those all over again. But so we came up with a list of 10, with 1 being, of course, the grand finale. It's like the Rose Bowl. 1's the Rose Bowl.
Right.
We start with number 10, and that's Keaton Slovis' first career touchdown run against Sam Houston. And it's like, well, what was so big about that? Well, it was the first game for Keaton Slovis. Mm-hmm. And as mentioned, his first touchdown run of his career.
Which is crazy to think about. A guy that's thrown for 10,000 yards and played that many downs and that many snaps has never had a touchdown run?
No. And it was like, okay. But the problem is, as we look back, BYU scored 14 points in that game.
Yeah.
Red flags all over the place. Red flags that signified more trouble ahead when we kind of wrote it off as we didn't know Aiden Robbins had a broken rib. We just thought he was struggling. Mm-hmm. The Cougars were missing a couple of receivers. Aaron Roderick struggled with not having a natural RPO guy at quarterback. But we just figured, hey, it's the first time out, 14
they're getting to know each other. 7 transfers on offense. They got to get to know each other. Things are going to get better on offense.
Yeah, and they didn't get great. They got better in some spots, but looking back on a 14-0 win. Now, Southern Illinois in August, if that's 14-0, those same red flags are out. And this time it's like, hey, okay, wait a second. We didn't fix what needed to be fixed.
Right. One thing that we did see in that game was, hey, this defense looks like they're much improved.
Yeah.
And we thought that as well in that game. But we felt like Keaton Slovis' first career touchdown was a big deal, and it was the start of a new era. It was BYU with a new quarterback, transfer portal quarterback in the Big 12, getting his first rushing touchdown.
Full house, and it was fun to be back.
It was fun.
Aiden Robbins went for 182 yards against Oklahoma, a 25-yarder out of the gate. We have that in there in our top 10 list at number 9 because Robbins had to be in there because when healthy, he was as advertised.
Yeah, and that, to me, we put that play in there because it's like, oh. And I remember you and I saying this as we're watching that game and how effective he was, and we're going, this is the Aiden Robbins that needed to play all season long for this offense to be good. This is the one we heard about that rushed for 1,000 yards at UNLV. This is the downhill attacking running style that punishes defenders. He was phenomenal in that game. So we give him that play because it was the biggest play for him in that game, but that was the biggest game running the football. Aiden with 182 yards against a really good Oklahoma team where they had Oklahoma on the ropes. And it's number 9 because it's a what if play or a what if game. What if Aiden Robbins is healthy all season long and not just the last 3 games of the season? What difference does that make in BYU's offense? I would submit that it makes a huge difference to have a healthy Aiden Robbins all season.
I'd like to think that it would have prevented Keaton Slovis from getting his shoulder hurt.
Yeah, because they were running Keaton Slovis.
You never know, but I would have thought that. All right, next on the list, L.J. Martin, who came in as a true freshman from El Paso, Texas. He's playing because Robbins' ribs were broken, which we didn't really find out until middle of the season.
A couple weeks later,
29-yard run for a touchdown against Cincinnati in that third quarter of BYU's first Big 12 game, and he looked like a Big 12 player. Yeah,
and they win this. They win this Big 12 game, and let's talk about 8 and 7 at the same time because our number 7 is L.J. Martin's 45-yard touchdown run against Arkansas. Yeah. The week before that. And the reason I say let's lump them together is because this is a glimpse into the future. So we say that Aiden Robbins play was a glimpse into what could have been had he been healthy. Well, Aiden's going off to the NFL now. He's going to try to go off to the NFL, but he's not coming back. I wish he would be coming back. And so now it's going to be L.J. Martin as the feature guy, which he was for part of the season last season. And this was a glimpse of what he could be, a glimpse into the future the next couple of years. And I think he showed up good. When he was the feature guy and when they gave him the ball 15, 20 times. He was very effective and showed that he can be a Big 12 caliber back. I think they need some depth.
Yeah.
I think they still need to find some guys to go along with him, but I think L.J. Martin showed us with that 29-yard touchdown run in his game against Cincinnati and his 45-yarder against Arkansas and the game he had against Arkansas, that he can compete at this level and he can be a big-time Big 12 back.
I loved that in that 45-yard run, he ran away from Arkansas. Mm-hmm. They finally caught him as he was in the end zone, but, this kid out of high school getting chased by SEC defenders. Once he broke through that hole, he was off to the races with big signs of better things to come. Midway through our top 10 list of offensive plays from 2023, and let's go to Kansas. That was the Big 12 road opener. Keaton Slovis' touchdown pass to Darius Lassiter. That's on the list for a variety of reasons. For one, that was Lassiter's first big play. Mm-hmm. And 2, it came in a setting where his dad played at Kansas. His brother was a defensive back at Kansas. His mom was there. And the only other meeting was between BYU and Kansas. His dad had like 3 interceptions in the Kansas BYU Aloha Bowl. So you had all that going on, and then Lassiter catches a touchdown.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily just the play, although it was a great play.
No.
It was the fact that it was a little bit of a coming out party for Lassiter, who by the way, is coming back next season. And I don't know whether it'll be him or Chase Roberts but This is a really good receiving core coming back for BYU next year that's deep and talented and looks very much the part of a Big 12 receiving core, and partly because of the emergence of Lassiter and his ability. He's very athletic, he's long, he's physical. We saw that in that Kansas game. It was so fun to see him do it in front of family and friends back in Kansas where they have a ton of roots. He's going to be really good next year.
Let's call a 30-second timeout in the middle of our list, because I think Keanu Hill moving to tight end is huge, and he'll be bigger. He's got great hands. He's a good blocker already, probably one of the best pass blockers in the receiving core. Fills the void of Isaac Rex, but gives us a healthy tight end. I think that for a quarterback to have that option in BYU's offense, I didn't really think about it right up until they announced, hey, by the way, Keanu's moving to tight end. I thought, duh, the light kind of went on.
Well, and think about the success BYU's had with guys like Keanu Hill moving to tight end. I'm going to go all the way back to Dennis Pitta, because remember, Dennis Pitta was a 6'4", 210-pound guy.
Receiver.
That was a wide receiver, walk-on, that put some weight on, and they went, whoa, as he's putting this weight on, he's keeping his receiving skills? This guy might be a really good tight end. Really good was an understatement, as he became a NFL Pro Bowler, like one of the best tight ends in the NFL before his hip injuries. Now, the other one I'm thinking of is Moroni Leulu-Pututau, who was playing wide receiver, very similar at wide receiver to Keanu Hill, size-wise. And Moroni had one of the same issues that Keanu has. Moroni struggled to stay at the weight he needed to be at to stay down to play wide receiver. And then finally just said, why do we keep trying to do wrestler workouts and weight loss with this guy and keeping him under 220? Why don't we just let him go up to 230 and play? And Keanu has really had to focus to keep his weight down under 220, right? So why not let him go? Why not get him working out? Let the boy eat, for Pete's sakes.
Give him another steak.
Let this man eat and let him go up to 235, because I believe he can be 235 with the same skills. And at 235 and his skills, he's a decent speed wide receiver. He would be a phenomenally fast and agile tight end.
You know, in the Big 12, we've seen teams that have lockdown corners.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of good athletes. And Texas had a bunch, and Oklahoma, we're glad they're leaving. But some of the other teams will have some too. But I haven't seen any lockdown linebackers, and those linebackers have to deal with the tight end.
Or even if it's a strong safety, he can be a mismatch for folks at that position. So let's let him eat. Let's let him lift weights. Let's let him keep his speed. And I'll tell you what makes a great pass receiving tight end. Sometimes there's tight ends that are big guys that are 6'5", 6'6", and you look at them and you go, ugh. You know, the only thing, they're great blockers and they're good straight ahead. The only thing I wish is that they were a little more flexible in the hips and the knees and the ankles, where they run routes a little bit more like a wide receiver. A lot of these big tight ends are stiff. Yeah. Keanu Hill is not going to be a stiff tight end. He's going to be fluid and able to run routes and BYU's had great success with tight ends that are flexible and run like wide receivers. Chris Smith, their 3-time consensus All-American guy. Gordon Hudson, Dennis Pitta, we've talked about. Clay Brown, over and over and over again, the really, really good tight ends that we talk about for BYU are the guys that were flexible and fluid and could go out and run routes and make plays.
2 other reasons to love Keanu Hill. He picked up his 2 college degrees last month.
That's right. Pretty awesome.
And moving to tight end. All right, now the timeout's over. Now we're back to our list.
Now we're back to wide receivers.
Let's go to Chase Roberts, one of our top 10 plays of 2023. This was a 59-yard catch against Cincinnati. Now remember, speaking of Keanu Hill, when Keaton Slovis let go of that football, we're pretty sure he was throwing Keanu Hill.
We think, yeah.
And then at the last minute, Chase Roberts, who had kind of been rerouted a little bit by the defense, jumps up, grabs the ball. And since the defense was kind of ready to defend Hill, once Roberts caught it, he was off to the races, and he went 50 yards or so on the ground for a touchdown.
Yeah, and Chase Roberts is another guy that's back. Think about this receiving core for next year with Cody Epps, who wasn't really healthy all season until the very end this last year. With Chase Roberts coming back, with Lassiter coming back, with Keelan Marion coming back, who really just started to come into his own and understand the offense toward the end of the season, with Parker Kingston coming back with Dominique McKenzie coming off of a mission,
right?
Who plays wide receiver, who runs a 10-400 meters.
The Lone Peak kid,
like
Cody Hagan.
Cody Hagan, who can fly.
Yeah.
This next season may be the most talented, with not only and a variety of talents. You've got size and you got flat out blazing speed that can compete in this league. Maybe the most talented wide receiver core ever, coming back with tremendous potential. And Chase Roberts is right at the core of that. And so we have his play highlighted, but it also highlights a position group to really look forward to on offense this next season.
Number 4 on our top 10 list was Parker Kingston, not catching the football, throwing a touchdown pass to Isaac Rex against Iowa State to make Rex the all-time touchdown leader in BYU history for tight ends. So it came from a former high school quarterback in Parker Kingston, but not from a current Cougar starter. But it got to Rex. Rex made the record. Came on an awful night as Iowa State just pounded BYU. But Kingston to Rex is number 4.
And we've been talking about Isaac Rex's record for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I think Iowa State was the first day we didn't talk about it, and he finally got it.
Yeah, I don't know
we
what it
finally
is.
decided we had to stop talking about it, and they had to have a wide receiver throw it to him for him to get it. To remove all jinxes, but it was big time and so deserving of Isaac Rex, who just struggled through that ankle injury from a year ago, and played not 100% healthy. I'm not sure he was 100% ever this year either.
Right.
To finally get that record was well deserved. And how about it has to come off of the hand of a wide receiver on a reverse razzle dazzle.
It was that kind of year. Number 3, Darius Lassiter's one-handed catch against Texas Tech right in front of the Red Raiders sideline. I think it ended up number 3 on SportsCenter's top 10 that night. A phenomenal grab. Throw was a little high. Slovis just put it in the area. And he brought it down with one hand. One of the best catches we've seen.
Yeah, we're going to talk about another one-handed one, too, as our number 1. But it was one of the best catches of the season in college. It was a phenomenal one-hander and gave you a look at the kind of range and ability to go up and get the ball that Darius Lassiter has. And by this time, he was really coming into his own, where we're going, hey, this is like a primary target kind of a guy. He's really developing into a big-time playmaker.
If he has the kind of second year that, say, a Jackson Robinson's having on the basketball team,
or Noah Waterman,
then, hey, Lassiter's going to be
it's going to be pretty fun.
Good stuff. Number 2 on the list, let's go back to Parker Kingston again, not as a catcher,
right,
but as a thrower. And this play was significant because BYU was down 14-0. Was it 14-0 or 14-7?
Yeah.
But Arkansas had just jumped on them to start the game. BYU comes back, and they need a big play. And all of a sudden, the throw to Kingston, he steps back, and he chucks it, I think it was like 49 yards or so, to Deion Smith, the transfer from Colorado, for a touchdown against Arkansas. And all of a sudden, the Cougs were in the game. And
BYU had a bad habit this year, of which they need to fix next year if they want to win a few more games, of starting awful and just not getting out of the gates
in both halves,
and giving the other team just points. And Arkansas was no exception. And BYU needed a big play to spark that comeback. And this was the play where everybody just went, okay, a glimpse of some momentum, a great play call, here we go. And then they went from there, and they took that momentum, and off they went.
And Kingston, I did an interview with him the following week on our pregame show on game day. And, man, he looks all of 14, 15.
But he's blazingly fast. Blazingly fast.
And he can throw and he can run. Our number 1 play of the season, the Wise Guys' number 1 play of 2023 on offense, goes back to Arkansas. And the number 1 play on SportsCenter that night was the one-handed catch by Chase Roberts in the corner of the end zone to beat the Razorbacks, cap a 17-0 run. Nice throw from Slovis, but an even better catch.
I still want to go back and watch that. Don't have any idea how he got up and got that and then got in.
Yeah.
But just a tremendous catch. One of the best catches we've seen all time at BYU, considering the difficulty of the catch and the gravity of the situation on the road, down, game winner, all of that. I think it's the obvious number 1 for this last year.
We asked Darius, hey, who was that better one-handed catch, yours or his? He goes, his, because that won the game. Lassiter finished that drive with a touchdown catch as they went on to beat Texas Tech, but Roberts was a game winner, and he's number one according to Lassiter, and he's number one according to
I think
the
we all
Wise
agree.
guys.
I think we all agree.
Those are the top 10 offensive plays. Now let's move to the defense. You know, there were bigger plays on defense than there were on offense. And as we march from 10 to 1, you'll see the point. But 10, we're going to start with some new blood on defense. Ciale Acera got his first interception late in the game against TCU. It was kind of garbage time, but it was the first time we called his name. We're going to call it a lot.
Yeah, he found his way as a freshman into the lineup. And what we saw from him is that not only does he have the size and the physicality to play in the box and be a good run defender, but he has the ability to run and play in space. And this was an example of that with that pick against TCU. We're going to be calling his name for the next 3 years, and he's going to be a big-time player for BYU. And they picked up some backers in this recruiting class. This is going to be a strength of this team, and he'll be right front and center with all of that. So you have him at number 10, as it's kind of his breakout freshman season where he got significant playing time down the stretch of the season.
Number 9, Jacob Robinson, who was outstanding all year. But in that opener, he had 2 picks. We picked the one in the end zone that he landed on his back. Sam Houston, they brought it. That was their Super Bowl. And so his interception in the end zone against Sam Houston to help preserve BYU's 14-0 win. Jacob Robinson's number 9.
And that's just one of a few that we have for him because he was one of the leading interceptors in the country. And typically safeties who are back there playing center field get a lot of opportunities at interceptions. But for BYU this year, it was their corners who really jumped off the page with talent. And Jacob Robinson's coming back this next year with very high expectations. Like, I'm expecting him to be an all Big 12 and possible All-American candidate this next year, put on maybe 5 to 10 more pounds, get himself ready to be considered to be an NFL guy, and pick up where he left off. But this was the start of it this last year with that pick against Sam Houston.
Number 8, Isaiah Banya. He'll be back next year. He forced that fumble, and then he recovered the fumble. Yeah. And this was in the second quarter against Texas, and the Longhorns were driving to what felt like put the game away. They're in the red zone, and Banya makes a huge play, and then all of a sudden it's like the defense believed for a short time until the offense just buried themselves that, hey, we can hang with these guys. Yeah, we can hold our own against Texas's offense.
And rarely do you get a chance to get the strip and the recovery.
Yeah.
Because somebody else usually picks it up. But so in the stat line, he gets an FF, a forced fumble, and he gets an FR, a fumble recovery. And just a great play. And again, Isaiah, I feel like he was getting his feet under him this year, more effective toward the end of the year, and he'll be back as a rush end and what I think was a good debut for Jay Hill's defense, but I think takes a major step forward this next year and is one of the best defenses in the Big 12.
They're going to be helped by the return of Tyler Batty, who was on the Wise Guys a couple of weeks ago, and he's in at number 7 with his sack at Oklahoma State. 5.5 sacks for Batty. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of areas where he can get better, and there's a lot of spots where he's really good.
Well, and what's going to happen for Tyler Batty is, remember, this is his first year in this brand new defense. Different techniques, different assignments. He got better as the season went on. And he's going to have better people that know what they're supposed to do around him next year. He's going to have bigger, stronger dudes inside of him at that D tackle position. And, they're going to be really aggressive this next year. I think Tyler Batty, I wouldn't be surprised if he almost doubles his sack total this next year.
Second team All Big 12 coming out of the season, so you got to figure he's going to be on that first team list.
I think he's made a good decision to come back because I think he's going to be unbelievably productive this next year.
In at number 6 on the top 10 defensive plays of the season, Eddie Heckard's interception on the sideline at Oklahoma State. Now, he had a bunch of interceptions, but send your mind back to Stillwater. He's defending a guy. He's up against the sideline. Ball's tipped up. He grabs it and still gets his feet in
boom,
bounds.
Boom, 2 feet. Yeah.
And at first it was like, what, did he get it? And then the referee turns around, signals BYU's ball. One of the best interceptions of the season, just showing his raw natural ability.
His ability to break on the ball, his ball skills, and his ability to catch the ball. You and I were talking about this earlier today. Is Eddie Heckard, you could make an argument that he was the best one-year transfer that BYU had in that class last year.
I think so.
The biggest impact. And it wasn't just in his production, because his production was big time. Like, his ability to tackle in space, one-on-one, was phenomenal. His ability to cover and to break on the ball and his ball skills were incredible. But his leadership, we didn't talk about that much. Teammates loved him. Remember, this wasn't his first year in Jay Hill's defense. He knew what he was doing more than anybody on that defense, and it showed in how he played and the leadership that he showed out there on the field. So, yeah, Eddie Heckard with our number 6 with a phenomenal play. But Eddie Heckard gets a big 2 thumbs up from you and I on his impact and we think that maybe on defense at certain positions you can get by with maybe some 1-year transfers on defense, like an Eddie Heckard or an AJ Vongpachang.
Yeah.
Harder on offense, a little more complicated with play checks and all that kind of stuff, and a little harder on defense in certain positions. I don't think you can. A 1-year transfer at free safety is not going to work out. They have to make all those calls. A 1-year transfer at middle backer probably going to be tough.
Quarterback, tough.
Really tough at quarterback. Yeah. But there are some positions where it can work, and especially I think corner is one of those positions. Eddie Heckard proved it and played extremely well.
Heckard's also number 5. With that one-handed interception against TCU, the Horned Frogs were driving. Remember, they were in the red zone, and it's over the middle of the field. He just jumps up, grabs it with one hand, and then he runs 20 yards, and you're like, this guy has some skills. That was early in the season.
Yeah. And he never got too he always was level. Like, you would get excited, but it's like, yeah, that's my job. That's what I do. I remember that after that pick, I'm thinking he just expects to make plays.
We're going to hear his name 2 more times as we move into the top 4. Number 4 is Jacob Robinson, the pick 6 against Cincinnati. And, 3-point shots is the new love at the Marriott Center. Fans expect it. They want to see it. Dunks are okay. Dunks used to be the thing, but 3-point shots are what makes the noise now. A pick 6. Yeah, the BYU defense does that same thing.
Exactly, and they had numerous this year, so it wasn't just a one and done thing. Robinson with that one, big time. Again, he's coming back next year with a lot of expectations to be an all-conference performer.
And then number 3, we go back to Eddie Heckard.
Again.
His pick 6 against Oklahoma State. The receiver zigged, and the quarterback thought he was going to zag, and he just threw it right to Heckard, and he runs, 12 yards into the end zone, and all of a sudden we're going, not only should BYU have beaten Oklahoma, now they're on the road to Oklahoma State, and they're going up 24-6 at halftime.
How do they not win that one? They should have won both of those games, and that's one of the growing things. They got to learn how to finish in games like that. And we're going to follow that up with our number 2. That's another Eddie Heckard, a fumble recovery, so a scoop and score for a touchdown against Texas Tech. What didn't this guy do last season on the defense?
He did everything. And we interviewed him afterwards on the coaches on our pregame show, Game Day. And we talked about that play. It was his first defensive touchdown. And we said, and he came from, Batty and those guys knocked the ball loose. It's in the end zone. People are trying to get on it. He comes from the outside in. And I said, what was your strategy? He said, a lot of people, they just jump on the ball, in this dive thing. He goes, but you got to jump to the side and get it with your hands and pull it in.
He knew exactly what he was talking about.
He wasn't going to give that touchdown up to a teammate, and he grabbed it, and Texas Tech never recovered.
He's all about technique and doing the right thing, and did it. And isn't it interesting? We almost had as many scores that we talked about on defense as we did on offense, and that was a problem last year, right? The fact that the defense, at times, it felt like, man, if the defense doesn't score, there's not going to be a chance here. That's got to change this next year. BYU's offense has to be productive. We were saying the old days. We said it all this last season, before BYU's in the Big 12, during this season, and I'm going to say it again. You need to score 35 points a game in that league, or you're going to lose a bunch of games. The old standard of the old days of, hey, you hold a team under 24, you should win. Well, you're not going to hold great teams under 24 in college football today, especially not in the Big 12. You need to score 35 plus, or you're going to struggle. So this offense needs to get it going.
The number 1 defensive play from the Wise Guys from 2023. And this one you might not think about until we bring it up. And then you'll go, oh, yeah, that was the number 1 play. Because you're like, well, what? In a 5-7 season, how is there a number 1 defensive play?
Oh, absolutely, this is it.
But let's go back to Arkansas. Razorbacks are up. They're at midfield. It's 4th and 1. You punt, you pin BYU inside the 10. You go for it. You don't get it. BYU gets the ball at the 50. What'd they do?
They stuffed them. Thule and Vongpachang. They stuff them, and that kick starts this comeback. And BYU scored on their next 3 possessions to win the game 38-31. This is what started it all.
That's hard for a coach because you're like going, we own this game.
Yep.
Kalani goes for it all the time. We own this game. We're going to show them we can get a yard. But if you don't, the game can change, and the game changed on that play.
Well, and you put it in BYU's defense's hands, which at the time was the wrong thing to do. You'd have been better off to punt it down inside the 5 and try to put it in BYU's offensive hands because they struggled more than the defense. The defense seemed to make more plays.
They go down there, and Kingston gets his touchdown, and they score 17 straight and win the game.
That's it.
All right, our special teams top 5. And this was an interesting thing because BYU had one of the best punters in the country, and for a while they had one of the best gunners in the country until he got hurt. And
that gunner will be back and play in the secondary this
and we
next
look
year.
forward to that. But we start with number 5 because rarely do you have this deep snapper go down and recover a fumble.
Yeah, and it was Austin's last year. Austin Riggs snaps the football, runs down and covers. He's a very good athlete as that long snapper. He's been held that position down for the last 4 years for BYU. And he recovers the fumbled punt against Cincinnati, which was instrumental in that win in their first Big 12 game.
So the snapper recovers the fumble. Number 4, Marcus McKenzie, the gunner, recovers a fumbled punt against Southern Utah, and they follow that up with a touchdown as they pulled away in the fourth quarter. But McKenzie was in on the hit, but the ball hit the Southern Utah. It took a funny bounce and hit the guy, and it bounced free. But McKenzie gets up, grabs the ball, does a somersault, and lands on his back, and BYU's got the football again. He's just electrified.
Remember he told us, I heard it hit the player. We said, did you see it hit him? He goes, no, I heard it. I knew it hit him because I heard it. And then he went and recovered it.
Wow.
So
he's got a knack.
He created an issue where every special team that they played against had to double team him or he was going to create havoc. And that means that somebody else is going unblocked. So he had a huge role in cover teams this last year. He'll continue to do that, but I think we'll see a lot more of him in the secondary this next year.
Number 3 play on special teams. Now we have the deep snapper running down and getting a fumble. This time we have the punter, Ryan Rico.
This never happens.
He kicks the ball, and there's a bunch of running around. Tyler Batty hits the Texas Tech return man so hard that he fumbles the ball right to Rico, and BYU gets it back.
And Rico's one of the best athletes we've ever seen punting the football. Looks like he could play outside linebacker or defensive end with his size and strength. So that was big time. The hit was as big as the recovery.
Yeah.
So the play overall, that hit by Batty was something special. Just jarred the ball loose, and then Ryan recovers it. And we're going to miss Ryan Rico.
Yeah.
One of the top punters in the country. He's going to go to the NFL, and BYU's got to replace the punter. They got the kicker back, and we're going to talk about him in just a minute.
Number 2, special teams play of the year. Ryan Rico, the punter, throwing to Tyler Batty, the defensive end / special teams specialist, 36 yards at Oklahoma State. It was the perfect call at the perfect time. Late in the first half, Oklahoma State didn't see it coming, and Rico caught it, threw it over the middle to Batty, and he was off to the races.
And I remember saying, there's no way they're going to lose this game at this point.
Everything was working.
Everything is working. Everything is going their way. They have all the momentum. Oklahoma State cannot come back from this.
Yeah.
Why did I say that?
Well, because we had watched the first half.
That's right.
BYU was dominant. That takes us to our number 1 special teams play on the season. That comes from that Oklahoma State game, late in the game. In fact, on the last play of regulation, Will Farron, the new field goal kicker after what felt like 10 years of Jake Oldroyd, boots a 48-yard field goal in the rain right down the middle to force overtime at Oklahoma State. And that's when we all looked at each other in the green room at BYU TV and thought, you know what, we have a kicker for 2 more years.
Yeah. He took the doubt out of the kicking game. Like, didn't you just expect that BYU would make every kick?
Yeah.
I got to the point where I'm like, well, he just doesn't miss. I have every confidence that he's going to make everything. And I do moving forward. So BYU is set at kicking with Will Farron, and he's a Davis Dart, so I have a special place in my heart for Davis Darts.
All the Fowlers are darts. That brings us to the bottom 5, and this will be the painful segment of the show, and we'll move on to the other sports as our Wise Guys year in review here on the first week of the new year, 2024. Let's go to the bottom 5, and we start with number 5. Sadly, we had a lot of plays we could include in the bottom 5.
And what's really sad is 5 and 4 are in the same game.
Yeah, and cost us.
And right almost like kind of back to back.
So let's go with number 5, Parker Kingston. It's the second offensive play from scrimmage for BYU. It's 0-0. He gets nailed by the Kansas cornerback or safety or linebacker. I don't know.
Catches the ball. Kingston catches the ball and turns and just gets slobber knocked.
And fumbles, it's picked up and taken in for a touchdown.
Right.
And just like that, it's 7-0 on the road. The place is going nuts. And now BYU is in some trouble. They bounce back. They take the lead at halftime.
But they come out. And the start of the second is very similar to the start of the first.
And that's the number 4 play on the bottom 5. Pick 6, Slovis picked off first possession of the second half. So in 2 possessions, and you mentioned a moment ago, they got to get better at starting games
and
halves. 14 points in a game that they should have and could have won on the road in the Big 12.
They had games this year where you'd say, well, the other team has 21 points and they have less than 100 yards of total offense because the offense is just giving them points. You can't win games when you spot teams, and they did that a bunch this year. Kansas was a game where I felt like they matched up, but they just kept giving Kansas opportunities. And our 5 and 4 are both examples of that in that Kansas game.
Number 3 in the bottom 5, BYU's back out on the road for the first time since the Kansas game. Remember, they came home and beat Cincinnati. And they go to TCU. First possession of the game in an environment that the Horned Frogs were excited to have BYU back, old rivals from the Mountain West. And Slovis is picked off on the first possession for a touchdown. So
it just kills you.
So, and the theme's going to continue as we move on here. And we're only talking about the top 5. But that pick 6, what it did, TCU wasn't very good. They were good that day, but they started with blood in the water, and then they just pounced.
And BYU could never recover.
No.
Never recover. And then now let's go to number 2, because this was one of a couple of huge mistakes in this game.
And we were hopeful because we thought, well, look, it's the 3rd straight road game. Don't give up a touchdown on your first offensive possession.
No, don't do it.
You know what? They went a few downs. They didn't give up turnover.
Like,
so
hey,
they sent in the kickoff.
Hey, it's a 3 and out. Let's just punt it.
Let's send Rico in.
A 3 and out seems like way better than anything that could have happened because they could have thrown a pick 6 or had a scoop and score.
Yeah.
No, let's have a 75-yard punt return for a touchdown.
Right up the middle. And so even there, first possession on the road could not end without a touchdown.
And didn't they throw a pick like on the next series?
Yeah.
It got worse from there. It got worse from there.
It got worse from there. But I thought the theme of
BYU was not into giving up takeaways. They were into giveaways.
They were very giving on the road. 3 straight road games where in the first possession they gave up, on offense, they gave up touchdowns.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But that's nothing compared to the number 1 play on the bottom 5. Which
I think
is going to sting.
Everybody agrees on this one because it still stings.
It's going to sting for some time, maybe forever, because Oklahoma is never coming back to LaVell Edwards.
Well, and Oklahoma was on the ropes. And when you have the ball on the 1 yard line,
your quarterback's knocked out of the game.
I don't think it was on the 1. It might have been
2 yard line.
2 yard line. Goal. And it's first down. And all you need to do is run the ball 3 times if at worst case scenario. And you know Kalani's going to go for it on 4. Basically, you could run the ball 4 times. And if you don't get it in, you don't deserve to win. But they would have gotten it in.
BYU had just ran 3 plays for 58 yards.
And by the way, Aiden Robbins was healthy and running like a truck.
I know. And then,
but let's throw a 100-yard pick 6.
Jake Retzlaff tried to throw it to Cody Epps instead, and he got picked off. And instead of BYU taking a 24-17 lead with Dylan Gabriel already knocked out of the game.
Yeah, and BYU was playing lights out on defense in this game.
They would have got up 24-17 with all the pressure on that freshman Oklahoma quarterback. And remember, they were still playing to get into the Big 12 championship. Instead, it's a 14-point swing. Oklahoma goes up. BYU, to their credit, still comes back and ties the game. And then had a couple other plays that were candidates for the bottom 5.
Yeah, they were candidates.
It didn't crack the top 5, but that 100-yard pick 6. And as we were sitting there in our little platform area for our BYU TV game day stuff, and we're watching it, and we're listening to the crowd, and it was just, and there were a lot of Oklahoma fans in there, but it was just this weird, quiet sound as this guy was running 100 yards for a touchdown, and we're thinking, tell me that didn't happen.
And you turned to me and said, why does BYU not have nice things? Why can't they have nice things?
Why can't we have nice things? Oh, my. And you know what? We have a new appreciation for the Seattle Seahawks.
Yes.
Because had they ran the football, they'd had a Super Bowl.
And they have one of the best running backs at that time in professional football and didn't just handle it.
And then we did the same thing. Yeah. Of all the plays from last season, that one is the one that defines the season.
Yeah, it does say a lot about what BYU struggled with, and it was turnovers on offense. My most memorable play of the year would either be the Chase Roberts catch or that 100-yard pick six, for good and for bad.
Yeah,
those are my two most memorable plays.
Those are the Wise Guys plays of the year. Let's hope next year when we're doing this list that we have fewer in the bottom 5 and more spectacular ones in the top 10 on offense.
Yeah.
Because that's where they got to improve the most.
And I believe they will. I think they're making a major upgrade defensively, and they were pretty good defensively. And I think offensively, you're going to see back to the good old days with BYU moving the football.
Let's jump through the sports on campus as we look back on 2023 here in this first week of 2024. And we go right back to men's basketball. We mentioned earlier the Big 12 opener on Saturday. But looking back at the year, what a very unusual year for men's basketball. They finished their last season in the West Coast Conference in 5th place, 19-15 overall, no postseason. Fast forward to the backside of 2023, and they've been one of the great stories in college basketball, earning a net ranking of number 1
for a while,
and an AP ranking as high as 14.
They've been pretty much in the top 5 the whole month of December.
How do you do that from March to December with mostly the same guys?
Well, the beauty is Mark Pope went out and got multi-year guys out of the transfer portal that changed dramatically. He also had return missionaries come back and injured guys come back who improved dramatically. So it's the same core of guys, but it's not the same guys. Noah Waterman is not the same guy. He's way better with a year under his belt. Jackson Robinson knows where his shots come from. He may be the best shooter in the country right now, a year later. Dallin Hall is a year better removed from his mission. Trevin Nell, who was never really healthy last year, comes back and is healthy. He's the guy that everyone always expected him to be. Now, Ali Khalifa is a new first-year transfer, and he's turning out to be one of the best big men passers we've ever seen. And then I'll tell you another guy that we haven't talked enough about. Atiki Aliatiki is way better than he has developed so much in this last 12 months and is way better. So basically and Spencer Johnson was great last year and he's great again this year, as consistent as ever. So everybody is a little bit better, and that's the difference, right?
Last year, January, they were 98 in the net. And here in December for a couple of weeks, they were number 1 in the net.
And we've hardly even seen Foose.
Yeah.
And he's one of their best weapons.
And Dawson Baker, we haven't.
And he's one of their best weapons.
So what a year. All jammed into 23.
Yeah.
At the end of 23, the basketball season last March, it was, what direction are we even going? Do you need to make a change? What, 5th place for the second straight year, and we're going to the Big 12, we're going to get killed. Fast forward those 6 months, and now it's, are we a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament or a 2? What's Joe Lenardi say today?
We were talking about, 19 and 15, and that would be great next year in the Big 12. 19 and 15 in the Big 12, they'd be in the tournament for sure. And now we're going, wait a minute. That's the ESPN has them winning 11 games in January and February in the league?
I'm telling you, that's
what
dramatic
is going on around here, right?
Dramatic turnaround, and we give credit to Mark Pope and his staff and those guys who have all elevated their game.
Can they get to 20 wins? They look like they could get to 20 wins, and if they get to 20 wins in this league, they're a top 5 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Wow, what a difference the fall season makes.
Women's basketball, BYU finished their Amber Whiting's first year as head coach at 16-17 with an appearance in the WNIT. Lauren Gustin decided to return for her final year.
That's the best recruiting job that Amber did.
Yeah, she's on her way to becoming BYU's all-time leading rebounder. And then Amber went out and signed some recruits, got her daughter, who was a 4-star commit to Oregon.
And playing well.
At BYU. Signed Delaney Gibb, the number 2 rated guard out of Canada. Remember, she was on Wise Guys the night she announced her decision to pick BYU over Utah and just about every other school here in the United States. So Gibb and her Raymond High School basketball team, coached by her dad, Alan, going to play at American Fork here in Utah County on this Thursday, January 4th at 4:30. So the Canadian team is down here on a tour. So if you want to watch one of BYU's future stars, you can go cheer on Delaney on Thursday. If you're there, also cheer for my niece, Callie Condi, who will be playing for American Fork. She'll be shooting threes for the Cavemen. So that's a personal interest of mine, and we all have a personal interest in Delaney, who's going to come to BYU next season. So that's Thursday, January 4th at 4:30 at American Fork High School. Delaney Gibb on display. And she's going to add to what is already becoming a great future guard.
Really talented guard line. Hey, and fast forward now to the end of 2023, which we just watched this fall part of the basketball season. You have Lauren Gustin back, as you mentioned. Great recruiting job. She's still a rebounding machine, just like she was last year. That won't change in the Big 12. She doesn't lead the nation in rebounding. We'll all be disappointed. Surrounded by this young basketball team who's got double-digit wins.
Yeah.
So they're way ahead of last year. And now they got to go compete in a really difficult league, but they're much improved.
Men's volleyball rebuilding year in 2023 went 19-7, 8-4 in the MPSF, 14-0 at home. We mentioned they start the new season this Friday against Ball State at the Fieldhouse. Lost to Stanford 3-2 in the semis of the MPSF tournament at Stanford. And so that's how their season came to an end. We're going to have the head coach, Sean Olmstead, on with us in the coming weeks. And that's still the show on campus, men's volleyball. You get a seat in there, you're lucky.
And your rebuilding year, you go 19-7 when they had a bunch of freshmen playing. And just like is normally the case, this season expectations are, hey, they got to compete for a national championship, which that's the expectation every year for that program. But that says something. That's a high bar, but that's the bar that Sean Olmstead loves.
Women's volleyball, they finished 25-7, 13-5 in the Big 12, third place, 13-2 at home, ranked in the top 25 all season, climbed as high as 8. They finished, I think, 18th, and they got eliminated by Arizona State in the second round of the NCAA tournament. They'll be back next year, and you know what? Texas won't be.
That's right.
And that's big for volleyball.
It's very big. Let's see. Texas won the national championship, right?
They've won it, I think, 2 years in a row.
Yeah. So, well, that's good. They can go play in the SEC now. That'll be fine. So, how about women's soccer? They finished 20-3 or 23-3. I hate that they can still have ties. That they have ties. 10-0-3 at Southfield.
3 ties at home. Crazy.
So undefeated at home. Ranked number 1 for 2 weeks after beating number 1 UCLA.
How exciting was that?
Watched. It was amazing.
Being ranked number 1.
They finished second in Big 12 championships. They were number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, hosted 4 games. They reached the College Cup again. So they went to the Final Four before losing to Stanford 2-0 in a game that just drove me out of my mind because Stanford, one of the great defensive teams in all of college soccer, basically parked the bus in front of the goal. They got a couple of fluke. I'm not going to say fluke because it takes skill, but their first goal was this crazy Beckham-like bend it into the upper corner. Like if you had nobody even defending and let somebody try to kick it where that was kicked 10 times, you'd make it once. And that kind of and once they got the lead, they played their brand of defense and they beat BYU. But kudos to this team for reaching the College Cup again. 2 first-team All-Americans and Brecken Mazingo and Leveni. Yeah, Leveni Vaca. Mozinga named finalists for the Mac Harriman Trophy for the top player in the country.
Phenomenal year.
Trophy.
They were Big 12 ready, and they proved it.
Yes.
The team that won the Big 12 was Texas. They're leaving.
Yep.
BYU will have a lot of new faces because this was a very senior-laden team.
Yep.
But
they always
they're
have
in
talent.
The winning business.
Yeah, Jen Rockwood doesn't shy away from it. She expects to be in that College Cup every year.
Women's softball, and Gordon Eakin, the head coach, is going to be on Wise Guys here in a couple of weeks. They finished their final year in the West Coast Conference, 35-17, 11-4. Boy, last spring feels like so long ago.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Runner-up in the NIT Softball Championship. Their first year as a P5 program begins February 8th at the Paradise Classic in Hawaii.
And you and I volunteered to go cover that.
And
they said, no, thanks.
Yeah, they did. We even asked Jack if we could do Wise Guys from Hawaii, and he said no.
Because we asked him to pick up the tab, and he said no.
So there we go. So we expect big things from softball coming up. Women's cross country, men's cross country, they continue to roll along.
Yeah, men's cross country finished number 3 at the NCAA championships. They were ranked in the top 5 all season long, and did not disappoint. Well, I wanted them to win a national championship, but
yeah,
but it doesn't seem like Northern Arizona is always right there.
And then Oklahoma State's right there,
Oklahoma
too.
State's always right there. So 2 really good teams in the Big 12. Women's cross country finished 14th at the NCAA championships. They were ranked in the top 10 all season long. Diljit Taylor was named the Big 12 co-coach of the year. She's going to be on Wise Guys with us on February 5th.
Look forward to that one.
Yep.
That'll be great. Track and field, the outdoor season. Men finished 10th at the NCAA championships. 6 first-team All-Americans. Kenneth Rooks became one of the greatest stories in sports when he fell during the steeplechase at the U.S. National Championships. He got back up on his feet, was in last place, and then he proceeded to pass everybody in the field to win the race and qualify for the World Championships, where he finished among the top 10. That might be the single greatest comeback story in BYU sports history, and there's a bunch of them, but that one was awesome.
It was one of the great stories in sports this past year, period. Yeah. The announcers couldn't believe it. They're like, what?
What's he
doing? They're coming off of that last turn, and they're saying, and Kenneth Rooks, like, where did he come from? And his future is still really, really bright and ahead of him. We had Henry Marsh on the show. If you didn't get a chance to hear Henry, one of the greatest steeplechasers in history, the top steeplechaser in the world for a number of years, came and sat right here next to me and talked about Kenneth Rooks' potential.
Came down from Idaho. And remember, he said, I think if everything goes right, he could finish in the top 10
in the world.
And he finished 10th.
Yep. And so his future's ahead of him. He's young for a steeplechaser, and Henry Marsh thinks with the right training, and he loves his attitude that he has a chance to be one of the elite in the world. Pretty cool.
Women took 19th at the NCAA championships, 4 first-team All-Americans in the track and field outdoor season. They're just now in their indoor season. We expect big things this spring. Gymnastics, they finished ranked 33rd, reached the NCAA regionals at UCLA. They're just getting close to getting their season started.
Yep. And golf, men's golf won the WCC championship to finish out their time in the WCC. They finished 23rd at the NCAA championships, so top 25 program. Women's golf finished 2nd at the WCC championships.
I'm curious to see how golf goes because you got Oklahoma State in there. Texas has always been good. They'll be here for the
spring,
rest of the spring, and then they clear out. But golf is so funny because, you know, when BYU was in the West Coast Conference, they'd go down there to Vegas and play their championship, and Gale Force wins because that's what Vegas gets in the spring. And, you know, and they did great this last year. But now they're going up against the best of the best, and they'll have to elevate their game.
Yeah.
Just like baseball, which faces a monster challenge. Basketball faces a monster challenge, which we'll start to see on Saturday when Cincinnati comes. But, hey, it's so much better than rolling out the WCC schedule.
It sure is.
Isn't it?
It's fun.
It's like
I said, we go back to what we said about football. I would much rather be 7-5 in the Big 12 and playing in a better bowl game, knowing that they've played against that level of talent, than win 10 games in the old Mountain West Conference.
Hey, we want to thank all of you for participating with us on the Wise Guys through 2023. And a shout out to our myriad of guests who've joined us. All those interviews waiting for you at wiseguys.com. The best is yet to come. We'll work to create the largest online gathering of BYU fans in the world. That's our goal, and we're firing out of the gate in 2024.
Yeah, we got great guests coming up for you. Let's start with January. January, we've got former Cougar basketball stars Eric Mika, Tyler Haws, Mark Durant. You already mentioned volleyball coach Sean Olmstead is going to join us. Baseball coach Trent Pratt is going to be in here and preview the season for us. Softball coach legendary Gordon Eakin, and BYU defensive coordinator Jay Hill, and BYU TV's Jerem Jordan. That's all just in January.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome month. When Jay Hill gets here, I have a feeling that we'll want to run through a wall for him.
Jay is a motivating guy.
So we look forward to that, and of course we'll roll with the biggest stories on campus and the inside stuff that we get from our access. Yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun as we get into 2024. It's hard to believe it's here.
Yeah, and the future looks amazing. Yeah. Like for BYU, some great performances in the fall, but looking forward, some great things in store. It only gets better.
Let's finish up with our Wise Guys quote of the week from Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah, Thomas Jefferson said, "I like the dreams of the future better than the history of the past."
Those are our words to live by as we launch into a new year.
The future looks bright.
Yeah. Yeah. What a cool show this is, Wise Guys.
Yep.
We're gonna have all kinds of stuff, and we're mostly really interested to see what's going to happen Saturday night against Cincinnati.
Yep. And then I just, when I went through that matchup predictor for ESPN, you can keep that in mind. Let's see how accurate they're. ESPN is saying BYU goes 11-4 in January and February in the Big 12 Conference.
Okay.
If that happens, and there's a few games in March, they're a top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament if they go 11-4.
Yeah, yeah. And as they're
Like,
doing,
I don't know that that's going to happen. I'm having a hard time believing that, but that's the metrics right now.
Those are the
That's
numbers.
the analytics.
That's just what the numbers say.
11-4 in January and February. Wow.
a couple of weeks from now, the Big 12 football schedule that'll shoot some adrenaline throughout Cougar Nation, and then of course we should get word on when spring football is going to start. The alumni game.
Yeah.
Who's going to be the quarterback?
A tight ends coach.
Tight ends coach.
Some announcements on transfer portal stuff that will come to light in the next couple of weeks. The real signing day, the actual signing day rather than the early signing day. A lot going on. Football never ends. We'll talk about all of that with Jay Hill when he comes on the show.
So Happy New Year, and we'll both see you live again on January 8th. Baseball coach Trent Pratt and everything that's going on that involves Cougar Nation. We'll be here live for it. For Blaine Fowler, I'm Dave McCann. We're the Wise Guys. The podcast will be up tomorrow.
Yep. And we'll see you next week.